Scrapbookers! Today I'm going to make the Christmas cheer project recipe page layouts. It's a 2-page layout with a Christmas theme, but the actual design could be used for anything. You don't have to use Christmas colors or papers. You could definitely use a different punch. If you need any supplies, you can get in touch with me or order from my Creative Memories website, but I will mention that the cute Nutcracker punch used in this project recipe is no longer available. Sometimes you can find something like this from a Creative Memories advisor in your area, but your best bet when you see a new tool or really anything from Creative Memories that you love and you know you have to have is to just order it right away when it is available. So let's get started. I'm going to make a couple modifications, and then because this punch is not available anymore, I'm going to do a separate video where I show you some other borders you could do on this type of page instead. But for now, we're just going to start with the design from Creative Memories. So project recipe layouts are something that advisors have access to and can share with you. If you don't have an advisor already, you can get in touch with me to get the instructions for this, or your Creative Memories advisor should already have this in their, what we call our home office or back office, that's got a bunch of special materials for advisors. So with this project recipe, what we need is 4 sheets of paper, and I'm pulling them all from the Christmas Cheer paper pack. In the example, they used this dark green plaid as the background, and then 2 sheets, one that's got the gold on one side and kind of a whitish grayish design on the other side, one that's got the tiny candy canes on the red with another white and gray design on the other side. The papers I chose for my backgrounds, I decided I wanted to use that gold paper. It's an ornament design on this monochromatic. The back side is white with kind of some gray silvery stars. But I decided I wanted this to be my background for my 2 pages. And then for the pieces we're going to cut to make the other decorations and background and photo mats and things, I chose this red plaid that has red, green, and gold kind of plaid on the other side, and then this one that's got the big print of the Christmas trees. And most of the papers in this pack don't really have a very specific direction to them, but this one sheet does on both sides. It's got the tiny Christmas trees on the green background here. I guess they're not really Christmas trees necessarily, but the evergreens. And then the Christmas trees on this white background with the polka dots. So for this one, we'll have to be a little more careful about what direction we're cutting our pieces. For the other pieces in this pack, the direction will not matter very much when you do your cuts. So I'm going to set my 2 background pieces aside for just a minute. There are a lot of other options in this pack. So I showed you which ones they used for the example on this project recipe and the instructions, but there are lots of other combinations, and there was also a Christmas cheer accessory pack that was mostly in the blue color. That one is now sold out as well, but if you had that, you could mix in a lot more blues. And this pack coordinates with pretty much any of your traditional Christmas colors and collections that a lot of collections we've had in the past. And you don't have to use this paper pack. If you have a different Christmas collection, you could use that. Or like I mentioned, the actual layout and design for this is not necessarily Christmassy. So if you wanted to do something else, maybe birthday, maybe travel, maybe whatever else you have that you're working on, this is a great layout for that. I'm going to set aside my stickers and my adhesives. I am going to use some foam squares on a few things, but we're going to just start with the cutting guide that's on the 2nd page for the project recipe. So this one has 2 borders punched out, which will be the Nutcrackers, and then 2 large sections that actually go across the middle of each page. And I wanted those ones for my pages to be this Christmas tree. So because the large sections are going to go this direction, I'm going to make sure to cut those 4.5 by 9.5 sections so my Christmas trees are horizontal. Or so my Christmas trees are up and down and the pieces are going to be horizontal. So that's going to be the border piece, or the piece here that is shown with the borders. There are also some squares that get punched out of this, or I guess you can punch. It is the size of this square punch, but it is also something you could just cut out with your trimmer. And I told you I'm gonna make a few modifications, so we'll talk about that in a sec. This sheet is gonna be my other pieces. So where that gets used in the project recipe is everywhere where it's blue over here. It's gonna be a background strip for my borders on each side. It's gonna be some of the squares behind the Nutcracker punch. And it's also gonna be some photo mats for our two smaller photos at the top of each page. So those are the pieces here. And you're gonna use one side for some parts and one side and the other side for some other parts. So you just get to decide which do you want. Like on my sheet, I've got the red or the multicolored plaid. And one of the things I'm gonna change is actually where I cut my my Nutcracker border from. So these gold pieces will be, sorry, that's the insert sheet. These gold pieces with the white and star print will be used as the background, but we're covering up a pretty significant section on the edge. These two border strips are 2.5 inches wide, which means we've got a lot of room right here that's gonna get covered up. So I decided I was going to actually cut my Nutcrackers from this white star piece instead of trying to mess with the direction of this or making it work with the trees. But I do still want to use the Christmas trees for the front, or for the big like accent section across the middle of my pages. So instead of punching the Nutcrackers out of the same page as my big background sections, I'm going to actually punch them out of my background papers that are the ornaments. And this one, I mentioned they don't really have a direction. It kind of does because the ornaments have an up and down, but you can see each row switches back and forth. So you could do this paper either direction. There's like kind of top and bottom, but really it could be top and bottom either way. So I'll punch out my two pages together. I feel like with a decorative paper from Creative Memories, doing 2 at a time works just fine with most of our punches. If you're doing something super intricate, you may not want to do this. And if you're doing cardstock, I don't recommend doubling up. But 2 sheets of the decorative paper is usually okay. And with the Nutcracker punch, even though the design is printed on both sides, like with all of the border punches, I really think you need to start from the left or start from the right and move to the left, because I have noticed these little arms, if you slide in the other direction, can get caught in your punch. So just started right at the beginning of where it says the punch area begins, using that black line as my reference, and then I'm trying to keep my papers lined up so I can keep punching them together. Getting a little off. I'm not holding it together very, very nicely. But then just match up the design all the way up the page, and you have a full 12-inch long border. Get that nicely lined up. Oh, and I have just an itty bitty bit, and I could trim that with some scissors. I'm going to see if I can just punch that extra off here. Yep, no problem. So now I've got these 2 edges of my paper, which will be covered up with my borders on the outsides. So we'll do a little bit of like paper piecing or welding to make sure we have the full 12-inch wide area. And then those scraps we're not going to use. And that's the only thing we're going to do with our Nutcracker punch today. So we've got 2 Nutcracker borders with the white stars. It's a very mild pattern. You can hardly even see it. And you can see, because of how I punched it, the top of his hat is a little flatter than maybe it should be. And the bottom, we've got a little bit of hat just because of how I started and ended my punch. So you might want to play with your punch a little bit and see what's the best place to start and end before you commit to that with your paper for this one. So these pieces are not going to get messed with anymore for now, but I am going to cut the others. We've got the 2 4.5 by 9.5 inch pieces, and those are going to be this direction. Okay, so I messed up my first tree paper. I need to measure better. It doesn't really matter if you want to do your paper a different size, but I'm trying to really do the 4.5 inch. So let's try that again. Cutting it 4.5 inches this time. And then looking at where does my design line up, because I want them to be trees kind of all at the same height across the 2 pages. Okay, that looks about right. Oh, it looks like I needed a tiny, tiny bit more off of that to get the right height of the design here. Just a little bit more. Okay, that looks pretty close now. And now we'll make this one 4.5 also. So I have 2 pieces that are 4.5 inches tall, and I only need them to be 9.5 inches wide, although I'm going to go just a tiny bit bigger than that. So let's just make them a full 10 inches. Just because I want to make sure all of my paper piecing layering parts work together. So there's 2 inches that are extra. This piece is going to be extra. I'm actually not going to use it in this layout. And this will go with my gold sheets up there. I will cut these other squares somewhere else, and I'll show you that when we get to it. So what we want here is 2.5 inches wide and two strips. These are going to be the backgrounds for my Nutcrackers for the borders along the sides of the pages. Two and a half, and another 2.5. Then we've got 2 photo mats that are 4 by 6 inches each. And so we'll cut this 4 inches wide. And then cut this piece in half. So we've got 2 4 by 6 pieces. And the squares we need over here are 1 3/4 inch, which is the size of this punch here. And I'll start out with this red strip here. We're actually going to use the opposite side of this paper for this one. And there's a little extra. I may come back to this for something else on this page, but I probably don't need it. And then we're just cutting this into 1 3/4 inch squares all the way down. So the cutting guide shows you would get 5 pieces from one sheet and 5 pieces from the other, and then you're doing half and half on your 2 pages. I'm going to do that a little bit differently. I'm going to cut this whole strip into pieces that size, so we will have more from this one. And where they have quite a bit left over on the end of theirs from the example, I'm not going to have that. I actually have 2, 4, 6, 7, and just realized one of these is cut too small. So I really have 6 and then one little nub that's a little too small. So 6 of these. I need 10 total from the 5 and 5 here. So I'll cut 4 somewhere else. And there's a couple options for that. Depending on what paper you're using for this one, you might use your square punch or do some gutting with your trimmer, and you could cut out from the inside of this piece to get your additional squares. And that's what I'm going to do here. But you could also cut those pieces from a lot of other places, maybe from other places you're going to cover up on these sheets. You could just grab another sheet of paper from this collection or a plain color. And this one gives me enough of a border if I'll show you. So if I punch and put the punch all the way in, it gives me enough space that my photo will cover that up. It'll still leave me enough of a border for a photo mat. So we got 2 out of this one. I'm going to do 2 out of this one. And then those little holes that I've made in my photo mats will just get covered up once I put some photos on these papers. Okay, and there is something that's a little different, and maybe you've already noticed. But because of how I cut these ones out, but that is all the cutting we need to do for this layout. And we're ready to start putting everything together. Let me grab this 12 by 12 insert sheet. This is just the sheet that shows all the prints in the Christmas cheer paper pack. And I'm using that as my guide to make sure I get my red border strips in the right place to give myself the full 12-inch wide page. So it's basically going to go like this. The left page will be the opposite, just a mirror of this one. And I did cut this one a little bit bigger and gave myself a little bit of space to overlap this. You don't have to do that. You should have plenty of room to just sit them right next to each other if this one's 9.5 and this one's 2.5. That should fill your whole page. If you wanted to do some more gutting or some more paper piecing behind this, there's no reason you can't, because a lot of this gets covered up. And I'm not going to measure where this goes. If you wanted to make sure it's right in the center, you could. But what I'll do instead is, actually I want to set this down a little bit lower than the center, just because of how my photos and other things are going to line up on this page. And then I'll do some repositionable tape down one edge there and one edge here, and then just make sure that's all lined up really nicely for the 12-inch paper. If you're putting these directly on a Creative Memories page in your album, you wouldn't even need to line it up with something else. That's just my guide since I don't have another page underneath this yet. And then we'll do the same thing, but in the reverse direction for the left-handed page. And I want to make sure my trees are at the same height. We've got that gold sheet lined up with our little 12-inch guide in the background here. And line those 2 pages up. And if they're not exact, it's not a big deal. You want them to be pretty close because they'll be basically next to each other. But they won't actually be touching like this once you get them in your book. You usually have a little bit of a gap between your pages. Okay, so that's lined up. And then we're going to do the same. Tape down the side. Of the gold background and the red border strip. Just line that up at the edge for 12 inches. Make sure that's good and straight. Okay, and then once you put that as all together, no one would ever know you had used part of the rest of that for something else. So these little squares are going to go diagonally across, or up and down for the whole border on each side. And if you don't like the squares, you could do circles, or you could do something totally different instead. And then the nutcrackers will get layered on top of those. So again, if you aren't a fan of how the colors are working together, you could definitely just choose some other paper. Maybe you want your nutcrackers to be just a solid greens, or that plaid green. You could do this for your nutcrackers, and then it gives you more of the green color in your paper or in your pages. You could do a green cardstock, or red, or maybe you want to do gold or something else, just as a different kind of accent there. One thing I really liked about this layout is that you've got room for 2 4x6 photos on each page, plus another 5.5 by 3.5 photo, and really it could be a different size just based on how you want to cut that photo map. So this is a good layout for a good number of photos. Sometimes we get the project recipes and either the photos are really small or there's just not really a lot of photos. So I like that this one has 6 total large, basically full-size photos. You do a little bit of trimming on these 2 that get matted, but the other ones are all just 4x6. And if you don't want to put photos there, or maybe you have some 5x7s or something else, this is nice because it gives you a lot of area where that could be. So one of the other changes I made was just shifting this piece down a little bit instead of being right across the middle of the page. So our red photo mats that have the little squares punched out of them will go up a little bit. And if you wanted to, you could use this side instead. So if you liked more of that design from your paper, whatever paper you're using, maybe you want to bring that other color instead. I'm gonna have this be my red right here and do a little bit less overlapping for this piece and kind of keep the mats about at the same height where they were in the original, even though I moved this other piece down. So now I'm just going to assemble these, and then I'll come back and we can talk about some stickers. Okay, now that I've put together the one, I'm going to give you a couple tips before I put together the second one. 2 things. First, these squares basically fit exactly this width of the border. So that helps you keep them kind of centered. But if you wanted to mark the center line, you could go down the whole strip here and maybe there's a certain part in your pattern, you'll just know that that's where it is. Or you could even take a pencil, because it's all going to get covered up with these squares. You could take a pencil or pen and mark down the center line here. And the center would be 1 1/4 of an inch. You could measure from either direction because it is going to be the center. And you could just mark that whole thing, and that will help you line up your square diamond pieces. The other thing, I was thinking for some reason they were going to all line up really nicely end to end, and then when I got to the top of my first border, I realized it was a little too tall and they actually needed to overlap a tiny bit. So when that happens, I like to do my top and bottom ones first and then my middle one, because I know where the middle of that middle one is going to be. So for this one, it would be the top and bottom and then like exactly 6 inches. And I was just using this, you might have noticed on the first one, as my guide to say where is 6 inches, and so where should the center of this diamond be. So I'll just show you that again here on this side. And try to make sure I'm in the center on both sides, that my diamond is nice and straight, nice and up and down the way it should be. Okay, so there's my middle diamond. Here's the bottom one. And the plaid design does help you line things up because you've got some different lines you can use as a reference point. But if it's helpful to you to draw that center line, or if you're using a paper that maybe doesn't have that type of pattern that helps with that, that could be really helpful for this type of a border, or really laying out any kind of stuff like this. Another thing I'll say about the border for this layout is with the Nutcrackers. I'll link to my other video where I show you how to do, like how to individualize your Nutcrackers a little bit. If you wanted to do that here, that would be really cute. I think to just make, like, give each of your Nutcrackers in this border a little personality. Or maybe they don't all have to be different, but you might want to just make them a little fancier than the plain punch. Okay, so we've got that all together. But when you do adhere this down, you don't need to do a lot of adhesive everywhere, but you want to adhere the little bits like his arms and feet, because those are the things that are going to get caught on other stuff as you're sliding it around later, or putting it in and out of a page protector or a pocket sleeve, whatever kind of albums and pages you like to use. But if you get a little bit of extra repositionable adhesive, it just rubs away, which is nice. And I am going to trim this a little bit with some scissors before I totally finalize this layout, because he doesn't need to have this extra 1/4 of a hat at the bottom. Just trying to make sure I've got him at the same height as I did the one on the other page. And then just keep those Nutcrackers centered with the diamonds as they go up. And because the Nutcracker is it's a more intricate kind of design than just some strips or stripes or waves or whatever, I recommend using a less busy paper for that. And maybe if you like something busier, to keep it for your background, either the background of your border or the background of your page, or like I did here with the Christmas tree background stripe across the two. Of course, you can do that however you want. So if you like something different, do what you would like. I just want to get this kind of the same as the one across from it as far as spacing and height. That's pretty close. Pretty close. Just want to straighten it out. Yeah, a little low. Raise that up just a little bit. And with the repositionable tape, that's pretty easy to do. Just shift some things around. We've got everything where we want them. And again, this pattern in the back is just helping me line it up so it is pretty straight. And where those will have a little bit of space between them, if they're not exact, it's just fine. Okay, let's talk about some stickers. And I can show you in the example where they put some stickers and which ones they use. And we're gonna do ours a little bit different here. So there's a few stickers here, this big tree icon, which is so cute, and it definitely matches the tree background paper here. The Happy Holidays word, which I've actually used for something else. I made some cards with these stickers. So some of my word icon, or some of my word stickers are used already. And then over here on this other side, between the two photos on the lower part of the page, they have this stack of presents, which is also really cute, and obviously matching colors and matching artwork all the way across. The other thing that's really cute on these stickers, they have these little nutcrackers that I just think are so adorable. The Nutcracker theme in this collection was really fun. You might want to do like stockings and a mantle. You might want to focus more on presents or candy. The Santa mail, that's really cute, and the sleigh. Any of those would be so fun. Just kind of depends on maybe what you're going to do with your page or which ones you like best. And then there's a whole sheet of border stickers. So if you wanted to add some additional borders, maybe along the edge of your border here, one of these would be nice there, or along the bottom or top of your strip here, or the bottom and top of the page. Those would look nice there as well. I am going to do a different little cluster up here, and I'm going to focus on the Santa sleigh and the North Pole stuff. So this will be more like Santa-y. And I do want to leave my space for my two 4x6 pictures here, but still put a sticker. And so what I'm going to do is erase this sticker up on foam squares and try to get the foam squares placed in such a way that my photos can still slide in. So just as a guide, this little sheet of foam squares is about 4 inches. So I want to get my placement of my foam squares about even with these little Christmas trees right here, and leave a good solid 4 inches or more on this other side for another photo. And that's going to be, I think I want to keep the taller part right there and get my sleigh kind of attached that way. And as far as height, this is about 5 inches tall. So like a photo is going to be even an inch bigger than this. So I don't want to get too much going on. One thing I can do is attach my foam square and not remove the backing here. So then I can get it on my page where I want it and then still lift it up and attach it to the photo later. So I think that's what I'll do, just to make sure this is all gonna work, that I will attach these ones to the page on both sides and leave this one with its backing still there so I can attach it to a photo later. And I'm just going to use some of these little paper scraps. You've probably seen me do this in some of my other videos, but I like to use scraps of pieces, sometimes the back of the stickers, sometimes other things. When I'm using foam squares on a sticker, because I don't want the other parts of my sticker to stick down to the page and have my sticker be all like partially raised in one area, but not in the rest. Just makes your sticker look all wavy and weird. So I'm trying to avoid that here by just covering up some of the sticky that I don't want to stick onto the page itself. And since I'm not going to use these paper scraps for anything else, this is a good use for them. All right, so these are the two. They're going to be stuck down permanently now. Get that sleigh in there. Then I've got another foam square right here, but it's not attached to this paper yet. If you already had your photos when you're putting that together, you wouldn't have to do that little finagling. But where mine, I don't have any pictures yet. For Christmas, I probably will soon. In fact, we're planning to do some Christmassy pictures, I think, when we have Thanksgiving. And then I'm going to do my little Santa mailbox up here. And Santa himself right there also. And I'll put my Santa on some foam squares as well. Let's see, need some little bitty bits for his arms to make sure those don't stick down where I don't want them to. Is that two pieces? It was. And another just really little part for his hat, for a little pom-pom on his hat. I'm not going to worry too much about his legs. They're so small. I don't think those are going to be a problem. So similar placement of my stickers. I just chose some different ones to use to kind of give this a little bit of a different focus. Focusing on Santa and sleigh, and I also really like this North Pole delivery sticker with the words. I'm debating whether I'm gonna fit that somewhere, but I might wait and see once my pictures are on here where that would fit. Just looking at any other words. I've got a lot of red. I'm wondering if I should bring in something else up here, like another color. Maybe the fa la la la. Maybe the deck the halls. Maybe this cute little gift for you. I like that one. But I will wait until I put my pictures on, and then I can add some more photos if I'd like to at that point. or some more stickers with my photos. I am looking at my Nutcrackers and thinking about how I'd like to dress them up. So I think I'll do that before I finish this layout. I'll post some pictures on my Facebook page. If you're not following me yet there, come find me, because I post a lot of things there about sales and promotions, new products, things that I have and what I'm doing. So sometimes what I post on my Facebook page, you don't see on my YouTube channel. Get in touch with me if you have any questions or if I could help you get the instructions for this project recipe, and I hope you have a great time scrapbooking your holiday season.